Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on The Flash, and this is an interesting video. So we are 6 seasons into The Flash, half a dozen seasons down, and who knows how many more to come. But as always, when you have a multiple of anything, you're gonna have a favorite, and you're gonna have a least favorite as well. You might not, hate that least favorite, but it's still your least favorite. It's coming in last. Now, something I'm always asked is how I would rank the seasons of The Flash, and I of course waited until Season 6 wrapped up before making this list, even though Season 6 itself wasn't able to finish the way I wanted to. So we will be going from best to worst. Actually, I know people got triggered when I went from worst to best, even though I think I wrote best to worst in the title for my speedster suits, but we're going from best to worst, don't worry. As I think my first few entries for this list will be obvious, at least the first couple, but still not an easy choice for me in regards to how I specifically place them. Now, just a heads up, of course, this is my opinion, so don't get triggered too much, but of course, I want you to leave your rankings in the comment section down below. If you want to, leave an explanation as to why, number 1 is number 1 and why the last one is the last one, if you want to, but mainly just leave your rankings from, 1 to 6 in regards to which is your favorite from, or what you would rank them from best to worst. So, yeah, and of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show your support. It takes 2 seconds. Yep, that'd be great. So at number 1, we have, well, Season 1, and some might think this is an easy choice, the easiest choice for this ranking, and I sort of disagree. I think the worst season is actually the easiest choice for me. I was actually really stuck between this and my number 2 choice, as I do feel my number 2 choice has the greater number of better episodes. If I compared Season 1 to that season in regards to its episodes and who had the greater number of better episodes, the other season would win, the one that's going to come number 2. But that doesn't make a great season if those episodes don't equate to a great overall story, and that's exactly what Season 1 does. Everything ties together in a great and just overall satisfying way to the point where if that was it for the show, you wouldn't be mad. I mean, you would want more, don't get me wrong, you'd want more seasons, and the show obviously sets the next season up in a couple of areas, but Season 1 as a whole for The Flash is extremely well-rounded and just feels like a super extended movie. Barry's origin is handled extremely well, and thanks to it being a TV series, we get to explore Barry learning about his new abilities in a very organic and, just, I don't want to say stretched out, but it just plays out very organically, rather than being rushed into like a 2-minute montage, which it would probably be the case in a movie, which I understand why that has to be, time restraints, but the show allows better exploration into Barry as a character, just as Barry, as well as the Flash, in a very organic way. Team Flash, along with Harrison Wells, or quote-unquote Harrison Wells, is probably at its best this season. It was just very simple. Barry, Cisco, Caitlin, and Wells, and not even Wells towards the end of it because he goes a bit evil. And it felt everyone was where they needed to be. Jo was weaved in perfectly with the show, and Iris and her arc with her blog and her progress as a journalist is great as well. Even though they do drift off, from this in later seasons with her. No one really felt overly forced into scenes, even though it could be argued stuff like Barry's relationship with Linda Park was just there for the sake of meeting CW criteria, because obviously Iris was with Eddie. Earbite Thorn is self-explanatory, no need to dive into that at all, just amazing, and bringing Eddie Thorn into it all, I thought it was just perfect as well, just great as well what they did with him. Season 1 as an origin story, and just even as a self-contained story, it's borderline perfect. Honestly, up there in the top comic book seasons of all time in regards to TV. And number 2 is Season 2, and as I was saying, it was very close between Season 1 and 2 as to who took the coveted number 1 spot on this list, and Season 2 has some amazing episodes that are due to the introduction of the multiverse, a menacing and just cool villain with Zoom, and just due to the furthering, building the world of the Flash even further. Exploring Earth 2 and meeting all the doppelgangers and just starting our obsession with the multiverse in the Arrowverse was great, and just the story in general with Zoom, where him and Barry were so similar in regards to their backstories, but Hunter Zolomon just took the different path and the fork of the road that the two characters faced. He became a serial killer, Barry became one that helps lock up serial killers. Thought it was great. Harry, the best Harrison Wells for most people, was brought in as well as his daughter Jessie Quick, another future speedster. Wally West was obviously introduced here in the mid-season roughly, and I think his development is done fairly well, and not in let's rush and give him speed and give him a suit sort of way, which easily could have happened. And the way Wally learns that Barry is the Flash is just natural. There's no build-up. It just happens when Wally is around Barry, when Barry has no choice but to run after Zoom with his dad. Thought that was great. Many people actually missed it on the show when it happened, which just shows, how spontaneous and unexpected it was. Zoom's overall plan was just average and a bit cliche towards the end, rather than personal or for relatable motives, which usually make the best villain, like motives, plans, or goals. But he was just so menacing and cool that it is like understandable that you would ignore that for the most part. Season 2, so great, deserving of number 2 on the list, and I can understand if you had it at number 1, because I was tossing and turning between season 1 and season 2. And at number 3, we actually have Season 6, the most recent season. Now, this could be the first controversial placing. I think pretty much all of these after the first 2 are controversial, to be completely honest. But it also could play in because Season 6, of course, did not get to wrap up its season, so we don't know if like the final 3 episodes sucked and ruined the season or something. But we have to base it off, what we got to see in regards to these rankings. And even without those last 3 episodes, I still believe Season 6 belongs in the 3rd spot. The build-up to Crisis was more of like an emotional and mental journey, and even post-Crisis as well, rather than like an adventure or action-based lead-up like we saw in Arrow, but was still enjoyable, especially when you had the addition of Bloodwork and how he tied into that. And even though he wasn't used a lot, I think not using him a lot allowed for a more condensed story that had a really good ending. Now, characters for the most part in this season were handled fairly well, I want to say, in regards to main storylines. Barry was handled pretty well, not the best he's been, but decent. Iris was probably the best she's been since season 1 and 2, though it was 2 different versions of Iris that we're dealing with in that back half, so there was more there for Candice Patton to play with. Iris's writing was always an issue, but Candice was able to always act above that just to make it like an average thing most of the time. If the writing was bad, her acting was good, it'd end up in the middle. But there was actually decent material here for her to play with, and it showed. Nash Wells was a pretty interesting addition to the team as well, though it must be said that Cisco and Caitlin really didn't get much this season. Was more just them playing into other people's storylines outside of like an episode here or there, where they got to be the focus or they just shined in general. But yeah, Season 6 overall, really enjoyed it. It was an improvement from Season 5. And at number 4, once again following suit with 1 and 2, we have Season 4. Now this is probably the most controversial one, I can already tell, but Season 4 to me is so overly criticized and just underrated in general, and I believe if you went back and watched this season, which we got a lot of time before next season, so why not go and do it, you would be pushing this up your list if you had it lower than 4. Now I will admit, Season 4 starts off with a jarring tone where it seemed like they were in like an episode of Big Bang Theory or something like that with a lot of their scenes, but that is gone after a few episodes. It doesn't go on consistently throughout the entire season like I've seen some people say. But Season 4 probably has the best character growth arc outside of Barry's, of course, in the form of Ralph Dibny. Ralph started off at a low bar and honestly ends up being the hero of the season for the most part. It was really well done, even though that start caught people off guard a bit. DeVoe, when it was actually like proper DeVoe, was a great villain. I loved him. I think he was really good, especially when Neil Sandilands got to play that really overpowered version towards the end. So good. Now, the biggest issues with Season 4 are, of course, the body swapping with DeVoe, which would have been fine if it was like, like a 3, maybe 4 episode arc, but it goes on for like, I think 8, 9, maybe even 10 episodes or something like that. Like a really long time, that it overdoes it. And it didn't help that the villains that were brought in to do this body swapping weren't very interesting, outside of a couple of them. Most were pretty annoying, to be completely honest. Of course, it wouldn't be a Season 4 discussion if we didn't bring up Iris. I just said that Season 6 was one of Iris's best seasons, and this season was, obviously, I think you'd say her worst. And you could tell early on in the season that it was going to be a rough one for Iris as a character, and it didn't really get much better as the season went along. It just seemed like they had no idea what to do with the character, but she was the female lead, so she had to be in a lot of scenes, so they just whacked her in there and just went, do something, Candice, do something. Now, this was the first season with Caitlin and Killer Frost sort of working like hand in hand and having a connection, and this was a fairly inconsistent season for Frost. Not the worst, I should have mentioned, that was probably Season 6, but that was for obvious reasons due to limitations. But yeah, I think overall Season 4 and its story and everything like that should be number 4 on the list. And at number 5, second from the bottom on this list, is Season number 3. Now, Season 3, heading into it, if you were watching live, of course, we were all hyped. Flashpoint, Kid Flash, Draco Malfoy, they were all coming. And Season 3, while Flashpoint was underwhelming for most, even though I did believe it did what it needed to do, the season as a whole starts off really strong, with Dr. Alchemy being this threat with the metahuman transfers from the Flashpoint timeline, while also bringing in the Savitar character, which comes to a head in the mid-season finale. Lots of cool stuff, and even the back half starts off really well, but it falls apart just after the episode where they rescue Wally from the Speed Force and Jay takes his place. We had that musical crossover the week after that just ruined all momentum, and like Wally had to deal with his Savitar PTSD in that episode, and it was pretty much overcome just in that episode in one scene with Music Meister. It was so bad. Not the episode in general, it's a fun episode to watch, but man, it was placed so terribly. The whole Savitar killing Iris arc was interesting to begin with, and you were wondering how they were going to stop it, and they stopped it by killing the one expendable character on the show, making him disguise himself as Iris. Obviously, that being H.R. Wells. Because they could just go get another Wells from the multiverse. What? Talk about building up and then throwing a pie in your face. Holy crap. Iris herself has just turned into a plot device for the most part in the second half, which led into the weak season 4 story. Though she has a pretty good arc in the first half, actually more than the first half. A lot of journalism and stuff there and like investigating. I think like the first time you actually see her properly investigate. Very good until you get to that bit there, which is just a plot device and it sort of falls apart. And of course, Pizza Face Barry. I think that's all that needs to be said there. Like, wow. Now, positives that I haven't mentioned already, there are quite a few, but the negatives of the season just bring it down a bit. But I really enjoyed early Savitar, mainly when he was CGI. Dr. Alchemy was really cool, and just the build-up to Wally becoming Kid Flash was awesome. That scene where he breaks out of that husk was amazing. Killer Frost is really cool this season, pun intended. And it could be argued that they should have maybe kept her fully evil and not had her flip at the end of the season. But of course, they wanted to keep Caitlin on Team Flash, which I guess is fair enough. The episode where we get to go into the future and see the season 4 suit for the first time, just this like different version of the Team Flash that we never see because it was when Iris died. That was just awesome as well. Lots of good to like great stuff in season 3, but just major negatives at the end of the season that leave a sour taste in your mouth and you just can't rinse it out. And then the final place or last place or number 6, which isn't saying it's terrible, it's just in last place though, and that is of course season number 5. Now the way I describe season 5 to most people is, well, nothing. It's silence, because that is pretty much what happens for the most part in the season. Nothing really happens. The biggest things are that Cisco loses his powers, and Barry learns that in Crisis he never comes back. It wasn't a 2-day vacation. He was gone for good after that. And there's some stuff with Nora that even then doesn't feel like it meant too much to the overall relationship of Barry and Iris as a couple. Other stuff just happened after that. And Nora as a character sort of brought Iris down, as it made her seem not too smart, because Iris is like, no, Reverse Flash, no, Nora couldn't be doing that. And then Iris just sort of gets proven wrong. It's like, hold on, everyone else is figuring this out, but you're meant to be smart. Why are they writing you like this? Barry pretty much had no character development this season outside of getting the Flash ring, and while there are cool episodes involving the villains for the season, the 2 cicadas were very underwhelming for the most part overall in the entire season. It should have just been the first half villain, like one of them was the first half villain, and then the second half villain was someone else, whoever that might be. The 100th episode fell in the season, and it was great. We can't go against that. It was such a cool experience to literally travel back to some cool moments in previous seasons. But just overall, the best way to put it actually is that Reverse Flash couldn't even save this season. Even though it's not terrible, it's just not very good. If it was a movie, you would forget it fairly quickly after walking out of the cinema. Yeah, guys, that's my rankings for the Flash seasons. Season 1 is number 1, Season 2, then Season 6, then Season 4, then Season 3, then finally Season 5. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know your rankings in the comments section down below. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say down there. If you want to leave an explanation as to why you got certain seasons in certain places, feel free to do that. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.